With Chad Scott leaving the West Virginia Mountaineer program as running backs coach to take the same position for the University of Texas, Coach Rich Rodriguez is now on the hunt for a running backs coach. He says he will have one hired likely within a week, and there are a lot of good candidates. So in this episode of Couz's Corner, which is brought to you by Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law and BetUS Online, we're going to talk about a few candidates I'd like to see in the mix or that might be in the mix for this position. And we're going to have that conversation right after this word from one of those sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up, and welcome into this episode of Couz's Corner. Come on in, make yourself comfortable, and let me pour you out this shot of top shelf college football news and analysis. That's what we do here around West Virginia, the Big 12, and conference realignment. In this episode, I'm going to give you a list of potential running back coaches for West Virginia. Now, I took it upon myself to make this list, took some guys who have coached with Rodriguez, took some guys who have ties to West Virginia, and then I had one that I did see on another site, and I'll be honest, I don't remember the site, but I did see this name, and it's kind of one that just makes sense, right? But we're going to start off with the names of potential running back coaches who are not currently on the West Virginia staff, because some of the names would be internal promotions or internal hires. The first ones on the list are not. The first few. Now, the first one on the list would be Tony Couz. The name may ring a bell. That's because Tony Couz has worked at West Virginia on 3 different occasions. He is currently the running backs coach for the New England Patriots, was just hired by Mike Vrabel. He had also worked for Mike Vrabel for the Tennessee Titans. He was actually the running backs coach for several years for Derrick Henry for the Titans. He's also worked for the New York Jets. In college, he's worked at places like West Virginia, Michigan, Pitt, and Arizona. He's coached many positions, including running backs and wide receivers. Now, to me, the chances of getting Tony Couz are very, very slim because he appears to be moving up the ladder in the NFL and could potentially be a head coach one day in the NFL. So I don't see him coming back to the college ranks where he will have to deal with the portal and all that, where he can work under a coach he's familiar with Vrabel, coach for one of the most storied teams in all of the NFL. In the Patriots, I think Tony Couz, unless you pay him just a buttload of money, I don't see him coming back to the college ranks. So I don't think Tony Couz is a viable candidate, although he does have ties to Coach Rodriguez and coached with him at West Virginia, Michigan, and Arizona. Okay, so he does have that. There is that familiarity. So not sure if he's a name on the list or not, but we'll see. Fred Jackson, the next name on the list. Fred Jackson is currently an offensive analyst for the University of Michigan. Now, Fred Jackson has been with Michigan most of his career. It's a very interesting story. He was the running back coach at Michigan from 1992 through 2014. He was retained by all the coaches during that time, including Lloyd Carr, including Rich Rodriguez, including Brady Hoke. He's also coached at other schools, at other stops as well. The downfall, though, he's 74 years old. I doubt very seriously Fred Jackson is going to want to get back into a full-time coaching role, on the field role, where he has to recruit and do other things. Now, he wouldn't necessarily have to go on the road recruiting. He could be an on-the-field coach, in the meeting room coach, and let the younger coaches like Noel Devine, for example, do the recruiting. However, I just don't see him making this move. He's a Michigan man. He's been at Michigan almost his entire career. I just don't see him making that move to West Virginia, but I do think it would be a good hire because you would have someone with the amount of experience he has. All these years coaching under a lot of good coaches. He's had success at the Power 4 level for many, many years. And he would be somebody that Noel Devine could learn under. I think it would be a great, great hire. You'd have a mix of a young guy in Devine and an older guy in Jackson. Might be a good mix there, but would he be willing to make a move at 74 years old? I personally don't see it happening. But who knows? You never know. The next name on the list who would be an external hire is Rod McDowell. Rod McDowell was actually Coach Rod's running backs coach at Jacksonville State. When Coach Rod left, Rod McDowell took a running back coach job at Marshall. He's now working under Tony Gibson at Marshall. Now, did he take that job because he preferred it? Did he take the job because Rich Rod didn't offer him the opportunity to come to West Virginia? And if not, why? Was it because they had planned to keep Coach Chad Scott the entire time? Who knows? We don't know the reason. But I would venture to guess, unless Coach Rod has a reason he doesn't want Coach McDowell, why would Coach McDowell not leave Marshall to come to West Virginia? No offense to Marshall, but it's a Power 4 job. You get to coach under Rodriguez, who you've coached under for 3 years already. You've had success there, had a 1,000-yard rusher last season at Jacksonville State. You're familiar with the offense. It's a move up. It'd be a Power 4 job versus a Group of 5 job. So is it possible Rod McDowell leaves Marshall to come up north to coach in Morgantown for Coach Rodriguez? I think it'd be a very interesting move, one I'm sure Marshall fans would not appreciate, but it is a possibility. The next external name on the list is one who I also think, and by the way, to me, of all these names of external hires, this would be the most likely. Just pointing that out. One that I don't think is likely, but I had to put on here, is James Montgomery. This is the one I did see on another site. Again, I don't remember what site I saw it on, but James Montgomery at Boise State. He's obviously he's been the running backs coach for Ashton Jeanty for the past 2 seasons. He's been at Boise State since 2023. He's also served in that role at Fresno State, Sacramento State, and Cal Poly. And he spent his playing days at California and Washington State. What's the theme here? He has never left the West Coast. He's been in the West, or at least the western part of the country. He's been in the western part of the United States his entire playing career and coaching career, and he's a native of California. So unless he wants to up and move all the way to the eastern part of the United States, I just don't see this happening. Now, maybe he wants to do it for a Power 4 opportunity, but he has no ties to Coach Rodriguez that I know of, no ties to West Virginia, no ties to the eastern part of the U.S. I don't see this being a feasible hire, but I thought as good a job as he's done with Ashton Jeanty at Boise State, I thought he deserved to have his name on the list. So let's move over to the guys who are currently on the staff and would be internal hires. But before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to our other channel sponsor here. If you're looking for a brand new sports book, look no further than our good friends over at BetUS. Right now, BetUS has an offer on your very first deposit, and you get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. With promo code YouTube150, that's right, promo code YouTube150 gets you a 150% sign-up bonus at BetUS. Be sure to take advantage of that today. You also get a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits, up to a grand total of $2,000. Make sure, though, if you do play, that you please play responsibly. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, so the next guy on the list would be an internal hire, someone who's already on the staff, and it would be Pat White. Now, Pat White is the assistant quarterbacks coach and assistant to the head coach right now at West Virginia. Obviously, West Virginia legend, arguably the GOAT of West Virginia quarterbacks, arguably the GOAT of West Virginia players of all time. Legend. He does have coaching experience. He spent a couple of years as an assistant for the Los Angeles Chargers, where he worked with both wide receivers and quarterbacks. He was a quarterbacks coach at Campbell and Alabama State. He also coached running backs at USF a few years back. Now, he was out of coaching for a year and was doing some athlete training. He's getting back into coaching now at West Virginia. He does only have 1 year experience coaching running backs, though, so that would be a slight concern for me. However, it's Pat White, and I think if Coach Rod thinks he can coach running backs, then make him the running backs coach. I have no issue with him doing it if Coach Rod has that kind of faith in him. Obviously, if you're the quarterback, you know what the running backs have to do, right? You know what everybody has to do. So I have no doubt that Pat White would likely excel in that role if Coach Rod chooses to do so. However, my gut feeling is that Coach Rod's probably going to hire an additional staff member who has more experience coaching running backs. That's just the running back is so important in this offense that I think you need somebody with more experience than 1 year that Pat White has. All right, let's move on to the next guy that's on staff, and that's another West Virginia legend, Noel Devine. He's the assistant running backs coach currently on Coach Rod's staff in Morgantown. Very little coaching experience. According to his bio, he does have some assistant coaching experience at the high school level there in Fort Myers, Florida, near his home. Outside of that, he's owned and operated Divine Speed LLC, a speed training business where he trains athletes. That's really it. Outside of his playing days where he played, some CFL ball, some semi-pro ball, and obviously his days at West Virginia. And did spend a little bit of time with the Philadelphia Eagles there in 2011 as an undrafted free agent. But Noel Devine, again, very, very little coaching experience. I don't think you can promote somebody like him just yet. I think he needs to get a year or two of experience under his belt before he takes that next step. So I would rather than bring in somebody with more coaching experience, coaching running backs at the college level. And I have a feeling that's exactly what they'll do. And it's someone Noel Devine can learn from, right? And help him move up the coaching ranks. And then last but not least, someone else who's on the staff, the senior offensive assistant for West Virginia right now, Travis Trickett. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be a promotion, but would they just give Travis Trickett the running back coach responsibilities? Something to think about. Travis Trickett has spent most of his career coaching quarterbacks and wide receivers and some time with tight ends. He's been an offensive coordinator. But I do feel like he has enough experience at multiple stops. I mean, heck, he's coached at not only this will be his third stop at West Virginia, including his days as a student coach, but he's coached at Samford, Florida Atlantic, Georgia State, South Florida, and Coastal Carolina, in addition to his stops at West Virginia. So, he has a lot of experience at multiple stops. Again, not a whole lot of experience coaching running back specifically, but again, he's learned from a lot of coaches, a lot of different coaches. I'm sure he could put his own spin on things. And being the senior offensive assistant, and Coach Rod said today in his press conference, he has spent time in the running back room with the running backs. So I have confidence that Travis Trickett could coach running backs if needed. Now, remember, Chad Scott leaving frees up about $800,000 or $900,000 in room for a salary. However, they have hired a ton of coaches. So do they want to spend that money and hire a new coach that you might have to pay, a few $100,000? Or do you just give Travis Trickett those responsibilities and you don't have to pay that extra money? I think Coach Rod will likely bring somebody in. I think he's going to want that running backs coach that has running back coach experience, someone like a Rod McDowell that I mentioned earlier. But I want to know what you think. Who do you think ends up being the running back coach at West Virginia? Is there somebody I did not put on my list that should be on my list? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Also want to give a shout out right now to my VIP channel members of this episode: Denny Allen, Tom Dean, Daniel Gigax, Shaggy of WV, and TS. Thank you all for being paid members. If you want to be a paid member, it's an easy way to support what I do here on the channel. There are also a few perks, including shout outs. You can hit the join button below. If your device doesn't have a join button, go to my channel homepage. It's right beside my profile photo. There's also a link in the description of this video. Also want to give a shout out again to my channel sponsors, BetUS Online and Cat Scanner, Stone Street, and Buckner, your personal injury or medical malpractice attorneys in West Virginia or Virginia. Also, if you want to support me for free, you can hit the like button. It's that thumbs up button below. Subscribe to the channel. Turn your notifications on, please, so you've been notified of future uploads. And please, share it with your family and friends who like West Virginia Mountaineer football. I appreciate you tuning in. Hope the rest of your day's top shelf. Stay blessed and Q Country Roads.